Love finances the other F word and want to support the show? Become a patron by going to patreon.com/FTOFW. You'll get special features, a shout out on the air, and early releases. Or if you prefer, pick up some merchandise at financestheotherfword.com.
As fantastic a CFP as Mel O is, and as wonderful an attorney as I am, please do note that anything said in our show are our opinions alone and are not meant to be taken as financial or legal advice.
Welcome to Finances, the Other F Word, a Gen Xer podcast for musicians and music lovers, where we discuss money and music without all the pretentious bullshit. Here are your hosts, Zoe Terry, attorney at large, and Mel O, certified financial planner and author of Finances, the Other F Word. Listener discretion is advised.
Hey guys, welcome to Finances the Other F Word, and today we are streaming live on Twitch at Mel O FTOFW, and we are going to be talking about who is responsible for concert riots and debacles. But first, before we do that, I want to call everybody's attention to my kick-ass shirt that Zoe bought me. That says, what does it say, Zoe?
D's nuts.
D's nuts. But before we get started on that, now that we've talked about my kick-ass shirt, we are going to have us a quick little shot. And today, Zoe and I are drinking Jinro strawberry sake that was born this year. So there you go.
What are we drinking them out of?
We are drinking them out of these really cool I Love Beaver shot glasses. There's mine, so you can see it in the camera.
Here's mine.
There's Zoe's. So here, let's get a little clinky on Zoe. Clink, clink. And here we are. Also, for those of you watching us on Twitch, I got a lot of, I know, it's smooth, but then it has a little...
Has a little kick to it, but it's not unpleasant.
It's pretty good, actually. We should have brought another bottle up. So obviously Travis Scott has been all in the news lately, and there is a little bit of legality things that are going on now as far as with the trampling deaths. And so I'm actually going to kick this over to Zoe while I pour us another shot for her to get everybody up to date if you haven't been following the Travis Scott issue.
Oh, excuse me, while I wheeze like a 90-year-old man. That was pleasant. So for anyone who's been living under a rock, it's been exactly a month today since there was a huge tragedy at Travis Scott's Astroworld on the 5th of November, 2021. 10 people died. Well, not all of them died on that day. Some passed away later on, but multiple people died and hundreds were injured following a crowd surge at Astroworld, which is a festival that Travis Scott started in his hometown in Texas in 2018. Now, so far to date, 275 lawsuits have been filed, which include 1,250 plaintiffs who are all looking for compensation for their injuries or the death of their loved ones and for their loss. And there's, I'm sure, likely to be many more. And we've talked about in other shows the statute of limitation, which means how long you have to file a lawsuit. I'm an attorney here in Nevada, so I don't know what the statute of limitation is in Texas. It depends on the state. It depends on the cause of action you have. But for example, in Nevada, for most personal injury cases, it's 2 years, unless it's a medical malpractice, in which case it can be as low as 1 year. So if you take that as an example, then most people would have, in this kind of case, just your bog standard personal injury case would have 2 years to file their lawsuit. But already 275 lawsuits have been filed. And I think we've talked about in another episode, right, Mel? I think it was the dissecting the Henry Ruggs accident. we talked about why people file the lawsuits earlier rather than later. Now, the lawsuits that have been filed, and again, also depends on the age of the victim, the plaintiffs, because the statute of limitations in most states will begin to run for your bog standard personal injury claim when the plaintiff turns 18. So the younger victims would have whatever the statute of limitations time period is, starting from the date of their 18th birthday. But as I said, most people have started to file their lawsuits early, and there's reasons for that, which we've talked about in other episodes. Now, the defendants in these lawsuits, which means the people that are being filed against, the plaintiffs are the people who are bringing the lawsuits, are filing the lawsuits against defendants. They're the people that they're holding responsible for the lawsuits. So far include Travis Scott, Drake, who was a guest performer at the festival, Live Nation, who is the main producer and a local the main promoter and a local promoter, NRG Park, which is where the event was held, security contractor, and various management companies. Now, the news at the moment is it's likely that all of those lawsuits will be consolidated into one case. Now, the reason for that is, and that happens all the time in say, for example, a car accident case. Say there's a multiple vehicle car accident case, and one car hits another car, and that pushes it into another car and pushes it into another car. And say 3 people file a lawsuit, a judge will usually, the parties will usually agree, and the judge will allow for, instead of there being 3 separate lawsuits, for all of those lawsuits to be consolidated into one. And that's what the parties in these lawsuits here, in the Travis Scott lawsuits, have agreed to do, and they're waiting on the judge's decision on that. And the reason for that is because it saves a whole lot of time, money, and of course the court's time and money to have one big lawsuit rather than having hundreds and hundreds of lawsuits which all turn on the same facts. It makes a lot more sense for everyone involved. So I'm imagining that's likely to be approved. Now, other issues surrounding this case are the recent TV and other media outcry about Travis Scott offering to pay for the funeral expenses of some of the victims. And I know Mel has some strong views about this, and so do I. And at least, almost half of the families of people who died in the incident have rejected this offer. And I think, what was your initial
I think
reaction?
That's fucking ridiculous. Like, give me a fucking break. I get it. Okay, your loved one got hurt, or your loved one, passed away at the concert. First of all, the fact that they're even naming Travis Scott is ridiculous to me, and Drake especially, because he only came on for like a song when stuff really, you can see, for those of you listening to us, you have to see the visual. Zoe shaking her head. she's very unagreeing with me right now. But the fact that the only thing I can think of is if they're afraid that if he pays for the funeral, then somehow it'll get them off the hook for trying to get him liability wise and get in his pockets.
Okay. In my opinion,
nobody cares about your opinion, attorney.
And from what I've read in multiple articles, and as always, and as Mel always tells you, we thoroughly research all of this shit. We put in our own opinions, but we also thoroughly research all of this shit, and we always include the articles that we get our information from, right, Mel, in the show notes.
We're not popular enough yet or famous enough yet that we can just make up shit and then people believe us. There's so many people. There's so many people I could put in this right now, but I'm not famous enough to call out those people. So, we'll just have to wait.
We'll bide our time on that one. But from my understanding, and this makes sense to me, is that several of the families of the victims of people that have died, including the families of the youngest victim, 9-year-old Ezra Blount, and a 14-year-old victim, John Hilgert, have said that the paying of the funeral expenses is just the least of their concern, and that they found the offer to pay the funeral expenses demeaning and inappropriate. And first of all, it was the way it was done, Mel. And I don't know if you know.
I don't know the way it was done, but please enlighten me.
Okay. They were contacted by a letter from his lawyer. And they did not find that to be sincere, and also found out by a press release. Now, if that's him trying to show how sorry he is and how, deeply affected he is by that, and he wants to bear some responsibility, sending them a letter from a lawyer doesn't really evoke that to them. And,
Bullshit. First of all, this is fucking Travis Scott. All right. So, of course, he's going to send all his shit through his fucking attorney, because God knows there could be something as simple as, okay, so for those of you who've been listening to the show for a while, you know that I got involved in a lawsuit with my previous firm. One of the things that my attorney was very, very, are you taking the shot without me?
Mm.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Shit, sorry, no, I picked up the wrong one. But,
I guess we're taking the other shot. She just fucking totally dusted me.
Sorry.
Mm. Oh, good stuff. Woo! Woo! Got my nipples hard. Good. Good.
Not sure what noise that was, but...
I don't either. Okay, so first of all, this man's Travis Scott. So when I was going through my lawsuit, which is a small hell of beans, and like I said, for listeners, you've heard me talk about this. I believe it was on, ironically, one of our Halloween episodes, that I divulged the fact that I went through this lawsuit with my ex-firm. One of the things that the attorney was really insistent on is the fact that, what did you say when you resigned? Like in your resignation letter. And I told her, what I said. She's like, you have to be very sure that that's what you said. And literally, I wanted to say, you guys can suck my dick and fuck off. That's what I wanted to say. But I didn't say that. I said, effective immediately, I am terminating my employment with blah, 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 and blah, 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 effective immediately. That was it. And I dated and signed it. I didn't even say sincerely, fuck you. I was just like, fuck you guys. And I signed it, right? So the reason why she was so uppity about this is because she said that she had cases that she had went where somebody was trying to talk about, in that case, a hostile work environment. And, in their resignation letter, they had put something to the effect of, hey, thanks. Thank you for employing me, but I'm leaving now, or something like that. And I was like, no, fuck that. So now take that on the level of Astroworld. You have Travis Scott that's being named, and Drake being named in something, again, that I feel they have no liability for. And I know she doesn't like that. And the thing is that, of course, he's going to send it through his attorney. Okay. Second of all, the whole thing, it's the least of their worries. If that was the case, then every time somebody dies, you wouldn't see GoFundMe's all over the fucking place where people were like, oh, that's the least of our worries. No, bitch, if you don't have insurance, then that is the biggest part of your worries. And if they were in their early 20s, 9 times out of 10, they didn't have insurance. And obviously for the child, most people do not have insurance on their children, even though it is an option, because they are afraid that will somehow make their children die. I've heard this 1,000 times as a financial professional. And so I don't buy that. The fact that they're turning it down is a bunch of bullshit.
Oh, well,
I know that's harsh.
We will get to why I completely disagree
as
far as Travis Scott is concerned in a second. I may agree with you as far as Drake is concerned, and I have to agree that if Travis Scott was my client, I would absolutely tell him, you cannot reach, as much as you might want to reach out to them personally and say you're sorry and everything else, you cannot.
Right.
As I would be absolutely saying, you can't, I'm sorry, it'll have to come from me. You can't contact them direct. So I do agree with you on that. But I think you're missing my point. What they're saying is that him paying the funeral expenses is the least of their concern, in that what they want, what the outcome they want is that for this to never happen again, and that for him to he bears some of the responsibility, not all. And he was just trying to lessen the public outcry and repair his public image, rather than realizing that this was a systemic problem that he creates at all of his concerts, and that this was just something waiting to happen, and that they want to make a change happen and ensure it never happens again.
So, okay. So maybe if I have a relative that dies at a concert, I don't want anybody to go through the pain I'm feeling, clearly. Okay. Mm-hmm. But my first thought is not, wow, I want to spearhead a movement that this never happens again. My first thought is, my fucking relative is dead. I'm going after you now. All of you bastards. I'm trying to go after all of you because somebody needs to pay me because y'all fucked up. You're not sitting there. Now, maybe a year after, once you process the grief. So, I mean, maybe they're saying that they want to do it, but I think they're trying to go after money. And I know I'm going to sound callous.
Well, this wasn't just one person dying at a concert, though, was it? This was 10 people dying at a concert and hundreds of people getting injured at an event where somebody has a history, and we'll get into it in a second, of inciting violence and crowd disruption. So, it's completely different. But I do understand, and I am always surprised when something happens and 5 days later lawsuits are filed. But, and I do this kind of stuff and have done for 23 years, and it still surprises me. But that's the world we live in. But anyway, so moving on. So more about the event. 50,000 people were attending this festival, and it was at Houston's NRG Park. And it was a crowd surge that happened while during Travis Scott's headline set. The youngest person who died was 9. The eldest person was 27. And Scott has said multiple times that he didn't realize how bad things had got, and that anytime he saw something going on, he stopped the show. I think there is reports that he did stop the show once at least. And something already that has come out of this is that event safety organizers in 15 countries, including the US and the UK, have created a new body to develop and promote unified safety standards around the world called the Global Crowd Management Alliance, to try and promote worldwide protocols for this kind of to prevent this kind of tragedy happening again.
So I know, wow, I'm really cynical on this topic. I had no clue I was this cynical. I kind of sound like a bitch right now, but I'm okay with it. That's all great and good that, we're going to have global blah, blah, blah. But as you guys are going to hear later, we're going to talk about previous concert disasters. We can't even fucking agree on climate change, and it's killing us.
I know.
So now we're going to fucking kumbaya and try to do, you can't. Each venue has its own contract. Each insurance policy we'll talk about here in a minute has its own exclusions. I mean, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's just like we've done this so many times, and I just don't like. I mean, there is probably a light concern that they don't want this to happen again. But at this point, I think they're angry. Kind of like how we talked about on our most recent episode about capital punishment, where Zoe talked about, besides wanting to see somebody die just out of spite and revenge, which I'm not really above that, obviously. So I don't know. I mean, I still think it's a money issue. It's like, somebody fucked up and now my loved one is dead and somebody's going to have to pay. I think it's more about that. Anyway, I'm sorry. When you said the global thing, I was like, I mean, that's great. That's wonderful. Mm-hmm. Good times. But.
Oh, and also let's not forget though. I mean, I'm agreeing to a certain extent that the people there bear some responsibility. These fucking idiots that, just can't control themselves enough not to be the ones that are jumping over the barricades and pushing people and can't control themselves. They all bear some responsibility too. The people are not the 9-year-old and the 14-year-old and the people
right.
moshed up at the front, but people bear some responsibility too. So, you can have all the global policies you want, but as long as you've got idiot human beings, this shit is always going to happen, right?
Right.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the people that could be held responsible, and let's start with the artist or artists, because as we said, Travis Scott and Drake have both been named in some of the lawsuits. I feel that Travis Scott potentially bears responsibility. I very much doubt that Drake does. But, you know, these kind of cases are all very fact specific. And we, of course, don't know all the facts. So, you know, we're kind of shooting the shit a bit here. And you know, this, as we often say, well, this is not our advice. This is just our opinions. We've done as much research as we can, but neither of us were there. But I've read multiple articles. And let's talk about Travis Scott, first of all, upon which Mel and I differ very strongly. But here's my reasoning for why I think Travis Scott is in a very precarious position, okay? First of all, there are reports that crowds were pulling down barricades and rushing past COVID restrictions, COVID checkpoints at 8 a.m. of the morning of the show. One girl had her foot trapped in a barricade. People were running over her. Fireworks were going off. There were only 2 water stations for 50,000 people. So there's no way that that dude didn't know that this shit was kicking off. And if he didn't know, he should have known, because he wasn't just performing. And this will run through part of why I think he bears some responsibility. He wasn't just a performer like Drake was. This was his show. This was his deal. He was an organizer as well as a performer. And witnesses reported that by the time Scott took the stage in the evening, the crowd surges were often encouraged by Scott, which is an ongoing theme throughout a lot of his shows. And express encouragements of violence during his past performances are well known in 2015 and 2017. And I think most people know that he was arrested for disorderly conduct and inciting a riot following previous festivals. And frequently in his shows, there are mosh pits. And this is another very, you know, what's the word? Well, very contentious issue that some argue that even his lyrics incite violence. And in one of his songs, Stargazing, he says, "It ain't a mosh pit if it ain't no injuries." Now, there's a whole load of, you know, controversy about lyrics, art, and you shouldn't take, you know, a person can't be held responsible for that. But when you take lyrics like that and then him actually inciting people to make form mosh pits and surge the stage and act recklessly, it becomes something else. And in one of his previous events, he had encouraged people to leap from balconies. And you could hear Scott in a recording saying, "They're going to catch you, don't be scared," before a fan drops from the balcony to the crowd. And during that event, another fan dropped and fell to the floor and was partially paralyzed. And he's in an ongoing legal fight with Travis Scott, even now.
Okay, so can I jump in here real
Sure,
quick?
sure,
Okay,
sure.
So here, I poured you another shot
Okay.
I've been to a lot of rock shows. Clink to Zoe. Let's get a little toast on that.
Clink.
Okay, so let me talk about a mosh pit for a second. Even though, and I'm sorry. Oh my God, that was a lot. So even though in a mosh pit, the goal is if it's a heavy metal mosh pit, and you go down in a mosh. I can't ever say go down. I know, I'm such a child. If you go down in a mosh pit, people will immediately stop and pick you up. That's my experience with heavy metal concerts. I don't know about a mosh pit at a rapper's concert, but they have like the wall of death and things like that you do at, heavy metal shows, where for those of you who don't know what the wall of death is that you stand on opposite sides, you line up like you're doing Red Rover. And then at some point, like when a guitar riff kicks in, everybody just runs and then they just plow into each other. The thing is that there is going to be injuries that happen. But this is my thing. I was at Ozfest. And this was in the 90s, and I was on the edge of the pit. I wasn't in the pit. But the thing with mosh pits is that for those of you who have never been to concerts with mosh pits, they just break out. It's not like it's not like they're like, if there's a mosh pit going and you fucking go to the mosh pit and you get your ass kicked, well, you're fucking in the mosh pit. But they just break out in pockets, you know? And so the thing is I'm standing there watching, you know, Godsmack, who's not my favorite at the time. And I'm just sitting there and it was hot as fucking balls. This was in Eastern Washington. And I grabbed my hair clip and I'm just like, fuck. So, you know, it had came loose. I grab it. I go to twist it. I go to put my hair clip in. And I think I might have talked about this on a previous show. And Godsmack has a song called Bad Religion. And it's actually not a super fast song, but it starts out, and then he goes, then slowly goes, get back. And I swear to you guys, as I'm putting my hair clip in, it goes, get back. I got punched in the head by somebody.
She totally deserved it.
I was like, what? Like, literally, he punched me. It had to be a dude. I didn't really see the attacker. But he literally, because a mosh pit just broke out in spontaneous, because as soon as he screams, get back, then the guitar kicks in, and he just must have seen me there. He's like, oh, fuck this bitch in particular. Bam! And he like fucking blasted me on the side of my head. He broke my hair clip, which I was very pissed about because it was hot as hell. I felt my head was bleeding, but I'm not going to go sue somebody. The point is that there's a certain amount of risk that you take when you go to a show that is going to be mosh pit filled, or, you know, a lot of people. And now I did not know that Travis Scott was an organizer. So I might be a little bit on Zoe's side as far as suing him as an organizer, but not as an actual artist. But my point is that mosh pits are violent. That's what makes them fun. It's a release.
But if you know there's going to be a mosh pit at your event, you need to have enough fucking room to let people. You don't?
No. That's not how heavy metal concerts work at all.
Oh,
House of Blues. So I know people don't like Marilyn Manson because of all the accusations that are going on right now. Maybe one point we'll talk to him. But I like Marilyn Manson. I have a Marilyn Manson t-shirt. He was shitty the first time I saw him. Excellent the second time I saw him. House of Blues was elbow to asshole, completely packed. So for those of you who don't know, we're come out of Vegas. And mosh pit, everybody's as tight as they can. Mosh pits just broke out. So there is no, that's what music is supposed to do, right? It's supposed to evoke a fucking emotion.
Yeah, it is, but it's not supposed to kill people. So if you're going to have mosh pits, if you're not going to have enough room, then you have to have enough security to help people out. And we're not talking about somebody punching you in the head and breaking your hair clip. You're talking about people that fucking died, 10 people.
And security doesn't stop mosh pits. Security does not stop
So
mosh
are you
pits.
just saying that it's just everyone's assumed risk then?
Yeah, they're the only time security, at least in my experience of all the metal concerts I've been to, and I've never been to a Travis Scott concert, when a mosh pit breaks out, unless somebody falls down.
But this is what was happening. People were falling down and couldn't get up, and people were trampling over top of each other. This wasn't just a mosh pit. This was people falling over and not being able to get up.
So, and then security comes in, but securities do not come in just because there's a mosh pit.
No, okay. Well, that's what I'm talking about. When a mosh pit goes bad.
Okay. Okay, well, that's not what you said. All I'm saying is that, just so you guys understand, security does not come into a mosh pit. They don't want to get their ass kicked either. But again, for the metal people, when you go down and I can't say it. I just get this and D's nuts. I can't not say it and not make the noise. But if you go down in a mosh pit, you're immediately picked up, usually by another metalhead. So
right, but because the event was oversold, there wasn't enough security, and the security guards they had weren't properly trained. When the mosh pit went bad, and people were falling over and not being able to get up, and mosh pit etiquette wasn't being followed.
Oh, it's so British.
I know.
Mosh pit etiquette. What the fuck is that? All right.
So people were fucking dying and passing out.
Okay, so let me pose this question to you.
Mm-hmm.
So stage diving, I've done it, and crowd surfing, I've done it. And by the way, when you get to the end of the crowd, they just drop you. That's what happens. So for those of you who don't know what happens when you crowd surf, eventually you run out of people and hands to hold you up, and then you just eat shit. That's how crowd surfing works. But think of anybody who crowd surfs. Think of any band you've ever seen that leaps out into the crowd. Now, what was to happen is if they were like, getting ready to crowd surf, and for some reason all of their fans were dicks and just parted, and then they fell to the ground. Does he or she have a legal recourse then to sue the concert goers because they didn't catch him?
But this dude, the one that got paralyzed, wasn't jumping. He got pushed from the balcony because everyone was going so crazy because Scott was saying, they're going to catch you. Don't be scared. Everyone jump. Somebody jumped and they got caught. This other dude got pushed.
So is he suing the people who pushed him? Do you know? Because that's who I'd be going after.
I'm sure if he's got a good lawyer, he's suing every fucking person he could find. But
including Travis Scott.
Of course, including Travis Scott, but and the venue and everyone else. But chances of him being able to know even slightly who it was that pushed him, minimal.
Well, that's a good point.
But another point is that Travis Scott had been warned in person about crowd control before the show by the Houston police chief, according to one article that I read. So, and as I said, he's not just a performer. He was an organizer. So that's where I feel more of his liability. I think all the rest about his lyrics, questionable. He was arrested for disorderly conduct and inciting a riot at previous performances. So I just think but I believe it's more as an organizer. Now, Drake, in one of the lawsuits, somebody said he helped incite the crowd, even though he knew of Scott's prior conduct. I think that's more shaky. I think... like you said, as far as I'm aware, he was only up there doing a guest performance, right?
Yeah, so. from what I'm to understand. But that doesn't, I mean, obviously, I think we both agree that lawsuit against Drake is bogus and a money grab. Or that's what I think. I don't know what you think. I guess if we don't agree.
I was going to say, don't tell me what I think, because I'd need to know more facts, because if he was inciting the crowd that in a place that's overpacked and there isn't enough security, and it's all about what he knew, though. I don't know what Drake knew. It's different about Scott because he was an organizer. He'd been told by the police there's a problem with crowd control. Then it's all about, I think it's tenuous with Drake for sure. But anyway, so that's the artists and their responsibility. So Mel,
how is that
wrapping that up?
How is that tenuous? So, I mean, if you have...
That means that it's unlikely to succeed.
No, I understand. I know. Yeah. I said, how is that tenuous? Not what is tenuous.
No, I know. But yeah, I'm just saying. I thought we were on the same page with Drake.
Oh, no, we're not. I don't think. So let me talk about Hype Man real quick. Mm-hmm. I don't think that even if Drake did say, let's go fucking crazy, right? Or whatever he might have said. I don't know. I don't think that hyping up the crowd at a fucking music festival. Look, if I pay $200 motherfucking dollars to get into a festival, bitch, you better hype me up. If you come out on stage looking tired and dragging ass, I mean, how many concerts have we been to? Madonna. Fuck Madonna. How many concerts have we been to where the artist we paid a fuck ton of money and the artist has came out and they have phoned it in? If you don't hit the stage like your ass is on fire, fuck you. I could have sat at home, had a drink in the comfort of my own house, and I could have listened to your fucking CD or watched it on YouTube. So that's ridiculous. If they're saying that they're trying to flag him as being hyped up or inciting a riot, like that's just that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I don't agree, but we will agree to disagree, and we do that a lot. And it's all going to be based on the cold hard facts, because that's what these things are based on. Okay, so moving on from the other defendants, just real quick, include Live Nation and Scoremore, which Live Nation obviously are a big promoter and Scoremore is a smaller local promoter. And they had a lot of the responsibility for the planning, promoting and staffing. So I think we can both see where their liability may lay, right? Security contractor, which is a company called CSE, which actually do the security for lots of events here too.
I used to work for CSE part-time. Yeah. During the lawsuit, I did a lot of part-time jobs to help pay for that motherfucker.
Yeah, we've talked about them before. Mm-hmm. And I read an article from somebody who was employed by them for the show, and they said their training was rushed and haphazard, and there was no training over what to do if there was a crowd surge. So you can see where their liability.
That's not true. That's not okay.
That doesn't make
event. Sense. No. In order to get the approved, in order to get the approvals from the city, you have to provide a disaster plan. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So I don't believe that there was just like nobody had planned with all these fucking people that there would be no.
We're talking about to the security guards, because that's what one of the major complaints is, that the security guards, there weren't enough security guards, and those that were there weren't properly trained.
Yeah, so that's not what the Houston mayor says.
Okay, well, I'm just, there's things both sides, and that's what's going to come out. And then the other defendants include NRG Park, which is the place where it was held, and there's going to be lots of, looking at how the venue was set up and whether there was enough space and how it was whether it was safely organized. So there's some of the defendants that could be held liable, and probably will. I think everyone does agree. We're not quite sure who, but this is going to be a big payout to the people that were injured and died. And at the end of the day, it's probably insurance companies that are going to be paying out rather than the individuals.
Oh, absolutely. Because I'm sure that, especially with Travis Scott's past legal problems, it sounds like I'm sure he has some type of insurance against, different legal actions. And, there's exclusions that come with that. And we're not insurance experts by any means. So I'm sure that is going to be, the insurance company is going to end up getting bent over. But you know what? Everybody pays a fuck ton in premiums. That's why they structure their business like that. They're still doing okay. They're mega cap companies. I think they're fine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no one's crying for the insurance companies, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay. Is that all your stuff you had?
About the Travis Scott, yeah.
Yeah, about Travis Scott. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the artists and a little bit about performing. So, a lot of you guys may or may not remember a lot of stuff that happened in the 80s. With a lot of the heavy metal acts that they got. So the biggest one that comes to mind right now is Ozzy Osbourne, Suicide Solution. And there's a sound effect in there where it goes do 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 do, something like that. And he wrote the song Suicide Solution about, why can't I remember, one of his a very famous musician that I can't think of, was it John Bonham? Anyway, who died of alcoholism because he basically drank himself to death. And so that's why in the song, he says, wine is fine, but whiskey's quicker, etc. So in there's a sound effect where it goes, doo, 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 doo. And so the attorney, a teenager in the 80s, was supposedly listening to Suicide Solution and decided to kill himself. And the attorney put Ozzy Osbourne on trial, and the zoo, 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 zoo sound effect sounded, according to the attorney, like shoot, 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 shoot. And then the attorney tried to claim in the song that there was another sound effect that said, get the gun, shoot, 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 shoot. And this was in the fucking craziness of the 80s when everybody thought that there were satanic messages if you played the record backwards and all this kind of crazy shit. Well, anyway, the lawsuit ended up getting thrown out. Then we had another lawsuit against Judas Priest, and I can't really remember everything it was for, but it was along the same lines. And then we had one that came across AC/DC because they had a song off of one of their earlier CDs called Night Prowler, and which is a great fucking song. And apparently there was the guy that was in California, and he was going around killing people, and he's a famous murderer, and I can't remember his name right now. Anyway, and there was an AC/DC hat found, and then of course we have Columbine. And the thing is that, like, I grew up on gangster rap in the 90s, and at no point did I go, I'm going to get a gun and go shoot somebody. Like, I mean, you can't, why would you listen to music if it doesn't evoke an emotion in you? Even people who listen to classical music with no words wants to sit and wants to hear it and wants to relax and enjoy it and zone out to it. I mean, emotions are supposed to be evoked in music. And if an artist comes out on stage and they are an asshole, like we'll talk here in a second about Axl Rose, there is the liability on the crowd. The problem is that you can't track these people, right? If it's a mob mentality, mob rules, everybody's destroying everything. You can't go through and hold them all liable. Like, I understand that you want to go after the people who organized the concert, but it's not really fair, because then you can't actually, in reciprocation, go after all of the people who attended the concerts that burnt shit or fucked up shit, or, maybe hurt people or kicked them when they were down or trampled on them or whatever the case is. And a lot of times when you're in a big concert like that, you're not pushing to the front. You literally get lifted off the ground and pushed forward. So the thing is that that's not something, where do you even figure out where that starts? You know what I mean? Like, one of the things that there's the documentary on HBO Max about Woodstock 99 right now. And one of the things that Jonathan Davis from Korn talked about is that when he hit the stage, there's 350,000 people out there. And he's like, and I know all these people aren't Korn fans, but I need to show out in this concert because I need to win them over. So he was like telling him, go crazy and doing all this kind of stuff. And the thing is he was talking about how he could watch sound travel through the crowd, because at the main part of the song, then people would jump at different positions. So how do you even figure out where that thing originated? So yes, the people breaking down the barriers at 8 a.m. Should have been a security issue, but based on the very little research I did on Astroworld, and I didn't do a lot of it because I know that Zoe was doing most of that research. But from the very few bullet points that I found from Astroworld, and as always, all the resources are going to be disclosed. In order to be able to do any type of event, you have to get approvals from the city and county authorities. Okay. And so the Astroworld event turned in a 56-page document that described its event operations plan. And it's also called a risk management plan, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And in there, it talked about all the emergency procedures. And the Houston mayor, Sylvester Turner, was quoted by the New York Times as saying, quote, "We had more security over there than we had at the World Series games," end quote. So the thing is that I don't know where the security was at 8 a.m, but it does not sound like it was a lack of security, because I don't know why the Houston mayor would want to, and I'm sure this quote happened before the actual concert took place, because the thing is that I don't know why. Obviously,
should I tell you why he's saying that? Because he's also the city's been included in the lawsuit too.
I just don't buy that, because politicians, all of them want to get re-elected. And the thing is that it would be very easy to pass the buck on this. So, I understand what you're saying. People can say whatever. And again, we'll agree and disagree. And so basically this is the information I got. When he hit the stage at about 9:06 p.m., people surged forward. And at about 9:30, ambulances started coming through the crowd. And Travis was according to this article, stopped the concert at least twice. Okay. And the organizers, who I'm finding out Travis Scott was one of them, as from Zoe, got together and they said, okay, people are tripping. Maybe we need to calm everybody the fuck down, and maybe we just need to cancel the show so nobody gets hurt. But they were afraid that if they canceled the show, that it would end up inciting a riot and that more people would get hurt. And so then at 10 p.m., when Drake hit the stage and he came out as a guest, then we saw another crowd surge. And so Zoe touched on this just a little bit, as far as who can be responsible, or who at least can be sued in the event of a lawsuit against a music festival. And I'm just going to go through very, very quickly, because she did a better job of it. Concert venue owners, festival organizers, security personnel, staging contractors, food and drink vendors, maintenance staff, transport and shuttle drivers, other attendees, and musical artists. So you can, even though I disagree with it, you can sue a musician if you feel that they had some type of plan, and that they encouraged whatever happened. And so let's talk really quickly about the different insurances that music festivals typically have. And for you guys, if you're curious about the profitability and the rise of music festivals, we actually addressed that in episode 5. And what we saw, for those of you who weren't there, we saw a transition in the 90s going into the 2000s of people, it started with Napster, right? Where people would just lift off a song here and there, but they wouldn't buy the complete album. And then eventually what happened is Apple launched the iTunes store, which allowed you to just buy the song you want, or you could buy the whole album. And then that really revolutionized music in the fact that, before then you would hear the song that you really love on the radio, but then you would have to buy the album or the CD single in order to be able to get that song. And what started happening is when that transition started being made and people were just releasing singles, is that you started seeing that record companies no longer wanted to invest the money into make acts legendary. Like we interviewed Rory Kaplan on here, and he talked a lot about the music industry not paying and putting money in to build artists up. And he was the keyboardist for Michael Jackson on the Bad Tour. And so the thing is, you see this shift come through the music industry where now it's faster for the record companies to churn and burn a couple one-hit wonders, which means that, they might have a couple songs. So you might not go see a band on its own, but in the event that, there happened to be on the bill at a music festival, you wouldn't feel really that your money's at risk as far as like you paid for a concert you might not like to go check them out to see if you actually like more of their stuff or you like their stage presence. All right. So then what happened is we see music festivals really start to take off. We had the big four that went through in the 80s, and then we had the big rock festival that I can't think of right now. It's the Saki's getting to me. But anyway, and so now what we see is we see music festivals where they have to bring a whole bunch of artists on who maybe only have a couple hits that the record company has even put the money in to invest to get it distributed out. And so that's where we see a change in, where you have bands that have been legendary around forever who can still pack arenas. Well, most of them are older bands. A lot of the younger bands can't do that, not because they don't have as much talent, but just because they simply don't have the support from the record label to get the same type of attention that some of the older bands did. And so that's where music festivals are kind of all come together. And we talked about that a lot on episode 5, and then we dug into the profitability of the actual festivals if you are so inclined. So when we're talking about some insurance that festivals need, there's, of course, the general liability coverage, which is, for property damage, customer, like just injuries, trip and falls, and, product liability, that kind of thing. But it typically does exclude assault and battery. Okay. Then we have liquor liability. So if you serve liquor, which of course any good music festival does, you have to protect against patrons being injured, whether it's by themselves being drunk or maybe hurting somebody else or damaging property because they're all fucked up. And if in the event that they are overserved at the festival, and Zoe did a great job on our Dissecting the Henry Ruggs accident episode, where she talked about how you have to prove causation, right? Yeah, you have to prove causation. So technically, if you could prove somehow causation into a third-party vendor at a music festival, then liquor liability would help with that. And then they have to submit plans. And so festivals must submit risk management plans to the city in order to be approved. And in these risk plans, they include site risk, which is, again, covering trip and falls, objects falling on people, bodies of water, event risk, which would be heavy pieces of music equipment, collapsing, and, carnival rides, vehicles, temporary structures, golf carts, etc. Then you have external risks like inclement weather or acts of violence. And then they actually have special insurance for artists that cancel or in the event of inclement weather. And so I think that this all kind of came about that. And I'm going to talk about 2 events that I remember very vividly where artists have been accused of inciting riots. And the thing is that I think that, yes, the security, water, those types of things, I think that if you can prove that there wasn't enough security or that there was poor planning or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the organizers should be held liable. Absolutely. But you can't just, and I'm not talking about Travis Scott now, but I'm just talking about in general. You can't just riot. You can't just riot because you don't like the act. Right? I mean, so the thing is that if that was the case, we should have fucking tore the Caesar Coliseum down because Madonna sucked ass. Fuck you, Madonna. It was horrible. So I'm just going to touch on 2 events, and then Zoe has a much more detailed. Well, actually, that's not true. I'm going to start with 2 events, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about some metal ones, which are older. And then Zoe's going to talk about more recent ones. So we have a whole bunch of mess specifically in the metal community that have been dealing with this. So all the way back in 1980, Black Sabbath, Geezer Butler, they were like 3 songs into their set. They were playing Nativity in Black, and a bottle came out of the crowd and smashed him in the head. But at the time, that part of the music, the lights were down low, so nobody could see it. So he got knocked in the head with a bottle. He started bleeding, pouring blood. They had to pull him off the stage. So of course, all the concert goers just think that they walked off, and then they start rioting and they completely lose their shit. And that was not Cincinnati. That was in Milwaukee in 1980. Then we had Iron Maiden in Colombia. And basically what happened is that we had people who ended up jumping over the barriers, and people ended up getting unruly. And then they actually had to bring the military in to start to basically calm everybody down. Alice Cooper in Toronto in 1980. He was heavily into drugs at the time, but he swears to this day that he ended up having an asthma attack, and that's why he couldn't go on. But fans waited 90 minutes before they were told that the show was canceled, and people were like, fuck you, we're tearing this place down. And they did. Metallica in Chile. People started jumping the fences again. And so what ended up happening is that they had to call in law enforcement, and they arrested about 160 people. And it was actually outside the Metallica show, which I think is hilarious that it didn't happen in the actual venue. It was all along the outskirts of it. Guns N' Roses in St. Louis in 91. So this, if you grew up watching MTV when MTV was worth something, they played this on MTV News nonstop, where Axl Rose was on stage. There's a guy in the crowd with a camera. This is way before cell phones. And Axl wants them to get the guy because he doesn't want to have his picture taken for whatever, because he's Axl. And at that time he was a douche. And so the security guards wouldn't do it, or he's just, there's a flood of people and he's pointing at the thing. He's like, take that, take that. Who the fuck you pointing at, bro? Like, there's a bazillion people here, right? So anyway, he got pissed. Security didn't do it. He jumps in the crowd. He starts throwing punches at the guy. He grabs the camera, and then he says, I quote, well, thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home. He slammed down the mic. He walked off, and everybody went fucking crazy, and they tore down. They damaged everything they could possibly get their hands on. They ripped up seats. It was a fucking nightmare. Then fucking Guns N' Roses and Metallica. This is in Montreal. Metallica and Guns N' Roses for one tour did a pairing up. Metallica said they'd never do it again because Axl was an asshole and he was unpredictable. Because of that, Metallica always went on before Guns N' Roses, even though I would argue then even now Metallica is the larger band. But they didn't want to deal with the bullshit. So they go out on stage. There is a pyrotech that goes off. It catches James Hetfield's arm on fire, and he has to be rushed to the hospital. So they only got a couple songs in it. And, instead of coming out and just playing a longer set and being decent people, Axl, again, being an asshole, came out. And 90 minutes late, 2 hours and 15 minutes late, my apology, came out. And then he basically plays a couple songs, and then he says, I think he got 3 songs into it, and then he just walks off the stage, and his quote was something like, we're not going to really be here. We're not going to be together very much longer. You're not going to see a show with us very much longer, or something like that. He walks off the stage, and again, people tear down the building. Frank Zappa, 1971. Of course, this was the one where Smoke on the Water, because somebody brought in a flare gun and shot it into the ceiling, and they burnt down the venue, and the water from the venue came across, and that's where Smoke on the Water was born. At a Frank Zappa concert. So Deep Purple wrote Smoke on the Water because of the Frank Zappa concert. And then, of course, Rolling Stones in 1969, where the gentleman was stabbed to death, basically literally 4 rows back from the stage, because they needed extra security. The concert organizers had hired the Hells Angels to do that. And then The Who in 1979. And this was people who were trying to get into the venue, and they had a little tunnel going into it. And there was massive trampling deaths as people were running in early, trying to get get to the front of the stage. And Woodstock 99, which I kind of touched on a moment ago, as far as with all of the craziness that ensued due to bullshit, just poor organization and things like that. So that's That's what I got. I think Travis Scott has liability as an organizer. I don't think he has liability as an artist, because I don't want to go to a concert where people are restrained because they don't want people to let loose. Specifically metal. When you go to a metal show, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to lose your fucking mind, scream your balls off, mosh people, punch them in the face. It is what it is.
Are you drinking your shot?
I am.
Okay.
I'm doing it right now. I was talking. So.
Okay. I'm not cheersing to that comment.
Yes, you are. That's exactly what that meant. That was a binding contract. Shut up and take a shot.
Taking it back.
Okay. So what other ones do you have, Zoe? What did I miss?
Hang on. Ooh, I've left a little bit in the bottom.
I know. I swear to God, I just picked it up because I was like, oh, there's still a sip left.
Don't want to waste it.
Good stuff.
Well, as Mel has indicated, sadly, Astroworld is nothing new. And tragedies like that have been happening since the beginning of concerts. And even I've got others that have happened that Mel hasn't mentioned. And even Woodstock in 1969, which was all supposed to be peace and love and drugs and getting it on, was beset with issues. And 2 people died there. One of which was run over by a tractor. What a way to go. Sorry, but you're at the biggest festival in the world.
You passed out drunk in a cornfield.
And you get run over by a tractor.
Mulched.
Wouldn't you be fucking pissed off though? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no.
What happened to him? He got run over by a tractor at Woodstock?
Probably before his favorite band too. Before he got to see his favorite band.
He was just waiting for Jimi Hendrix, for fuck's sake, Who's just, anyway. So, and then Mel just mentioned, but in December 1979 at the Who concert in Cincinnati, 11 fans were killed in their rush to get into the concert. In 1991, P. Diddy had organized, as he was known then, had organized a charity basketball event, and 9 people died when crowds surged to get into the basketball charity event. The capacity of the event was 2,700 people, and at least 5,000 people showed up. And P. Diddy was actually held partly responsible for that.
It actually was successful?
Yep. And it was held that he could be held liable for damages in civil suits. And he's mentioned it in interviews, soon after, I don't know if he still does, but how that devastated him, but was nothing compared to the families of the 9 people that were killed. But he managed to move on from it, obviously. Then Mel also mentioned the 1999 Woodstock, which basically devolved. It was an absolute shit show, devolved into riots. 3 people died, 44 people were arrested, and there was widespread reports of sexual assaults. In 2000, there was at the Roskilde Festival in Denmark, 9 people were trampled to death during a Pearl Jam set. In February 2003, stage pyrotechnics went bad at a Great White concert at the Station nightclub in Rhode Island, which sparked off a fire that killed 100 people. And that's just, I wasn't. In fact, I was here then, but I don't remember that. That's just awful.
Oh my God, that was huge. And it wasn't a large venue. That was the thing. I mean, it wasn't a stadium. Yeah, it was a smaller venue. And that's what happened is that when it went off, I think it stuck in a curtain, if I'm remembering correctly, a curtain behind them caught on fire. And so as soon as it caught on fire, it shot up the wall and then out over the top of the ceiling.
Right.
And so the roof was on fire and everybody was trying to make a run for it. And that's where, they got trampled. And then, of course, smoke inhalation and that kind of stuff. And it was a big deal. It took Great White a long time to come back from that. And, but then Jack Russell got a painkiller. So it is what it is. But
then in July 2010, 21 people died in a crush in a packed tunnel, which was the sole access point to the Love Parade Music Festival in Germany. November of the same year, 340 people were killed during a panic crush at a festival in the Cambodia capital of Phnom Penh. And in 2016, at a Snoop Dogg concert in New Jersey, a railing collapsed, injuring 17 people. Now, in that particular case, a legal technicality meant that Snoop Dogg couldn't be held personally liable, but other organizers were. And then there's a 2017 Route 91 Harvest mass shooting here in Las Vegas, which we covered in an episode.
Yep.
And just to touch upon the insurance issue, which we did, which Mel did earlier, MGM made a $800 million settlement in that case, and $751 million of that was covered by insurance. But still, with all of these, things that can go wrong, however well organized the festival may be, statistics show that 32 million people a year still flock to festivals, and most of them go ahead without a hitch. And those that don't usually are due to poor security, poor crowd control, lack of planning, and shortage of water. And one of the articles I read said that Europe has been having festivals for years and years, and that US perhaps has a more higher frequency of issues, because in the past 20 years, they've often rushed to hold as many as possible, and sometimes in a slipshod way. And this article pointed to festivals such as the Fire Festival, which was our first ever episode. We covered the Fire Festival.
Yep.
And we all know what an absolute
shit show
and nightmare that was. I watched another documentary about that the other day, and it still just amazes me what
Yeah, but the thing why I don't think you can, and I'm not saying you were, but why you can't say Astroworld and Fire Festival, because I came across some articles where they're trying to compare them. I'm like, not the same thing.
No.
What the fuck? Bill, was that his name? The organizer with Ja Rule.
I can only ever think of Ja Rule and his freaky eyes.
Back. Yeah.
No, not his back.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So I think.
Bill McFarland.
Bill. Yeah.
William McFarland.
William Bill, sure, whatever. He was just blatantly ripping people off. I mean, there's a venture capitalist, a female, who had given him a fuck ton of money, and that's the reason why he's in jail. He's in jail because of the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission, who is one of my governing bodies. That's the reason why the motherfucker's in jail, because he committed out and out fraud, where the other concerts, it would be a matter of just underestimating the needs of security or something. But
yeah. And although this more recent documentary that I saw was a little bit more compassionate towards him than the first one that came out,
fuck him.
Was just saying that, his intentions, according to some anyway, others were like, no, he's just a complete fraudster and everything else. But some people were saying, his intentions, he meant for it to be, for it to happen. He just was completely naive and stupid. But
the whole time he was getting drunk and getting blown.
Oh, I know. You
know what I mean?
I don't have any sympathy for him. He's where he needs to be. But
yeah, no, I agree with that.
And then there's other festivals that they just pointed out barely lasted, more than a couple of years. Like Tomorrowland only lasted 3 years because it was just so piss poorly organized. And other people complaining about Blue Ridge Rock Festival, Elements Festival, other festivals here in the US that just were poorly organized and didn't live up to the hype. But at the end of the day, they're always going to be there because people always want to go to them. I grew up going to, just like Mel, loving to go to live gigs from the age of about 15 onwards, and I loved music festivals. But I have to say, when my youngest started wanting to go to his first music festival, which was Life is Beautiful here in Vegas, I wasn't too worried. But then Astroworld happened, and he had tickets to go to Dame Vegas. I must admit, I was a little bit, a bit overprotective. I still let him go, but I was a little bit more of a worrywart than I had been for Life is Beautiful. But it was fine. But I don't know. They ain't what they used to be, just like everything, I guess. But that's because I grew up going to Glastonbury and stuff like that, where we're all just up to our knees in mud, and you
That's
can't.
because you're British. That has
Yeah.
nothing to do. Americans, we don't fucking do music festivals like that, okay?
I know. Well,
We're not-
you've tried with
we're not-
Woodstock, but even then, people getting run over by tractors. So
That was only one person. So if you took that as a
Okay.
percentage of everybody who attended, that number would be minuscule at best.
okay, I'm just saying.
Just like the people exonerated off of death row.
Oh my God. People are never going to stop wanting to go to music festivals for many, many reasons, including the ones that you said, that it's the best opportunity to see a huge variety of different bands, and the atmosphere is usually amazing. And events like Glastonbury, where you get to see not just music, but comedy and all different things, it's just, you can't beat it. It's just amazing. But
Well, as a result of that, the artists need to be hype and hype people up.
yeah, but they
So-
also have to have a fucking sense of responsibility too, especially if they were an organizer. But there you go.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I just watched the Woodstock 99 documentary, and when Anthony Kiedis was on stage with Red Hot Chili Peppers, and he looked out and there's all of these fires that were going on. Yeah, I'm there's listeners that hate me right now, but you're really going to hate what I'm about to say next. For their encore, they decided to play Fire by Jimi Hendrix. Let me stand next to your fire, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's like, that was in poor taste. And I'm like, yeah, it was, but fucking epic. I'm a concert goer. Red Hot Chili Peppers is on stage. Shit is going crazy around me. I've been sweating my balls off for 3 days. And then they come out, and it did look like Apocalypse Now. There was like 7 fires going, which I do not condone that at all. I just thought it was very apt that their encore was Let Me Stand Next to Your Fire, or Fire by Jimi Hendrix. And I know that that's a very unpopular opinion, but when I saw that, I was like, yeah, makes sense. So anyway, with that, we will have to see how this develops. I don't know. I do send my condolences to the family, and obviously I know Zoe does, because she's a bleeding heart, to all of the families who lost somebody. And whatever it is that you're hoping to get out of the lawsuit, I hope you get it. If it's closure, great. If it's money, great. If it's that it'll never happen again to anybody else, great. I just hope the families get whatever it is that they're looking for as a result of losing their loved ones. And we will probably follow up on this, as well as we will be following up on the Henry Ruggs accident as soon as we get information on that. And with that, follow us on social media at Finance is the Other F Word. Check out our YouTube channel at Finance is the Other F Word. If you want to pop on Twitch and you want to ask us comments or give us real-time feedback about how callous you think I am, or how funny Zoe's accent is, then you can always pop on at Mel O FTOFW. And with that, we are out this bitch.
Cheerio.
Thank you for listening. Please check back for upcoming episodes and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Finances, the Other F Word.